Hi everybody, this is Miss Amy here. Thank you for joining me for another fun art project. Today we're going to do a 1-point perspective project, but normally we do a 1-point perspective looking down, like way down the road at something. Today we're going to do a 1-point perspective project looking up into the sky. So here's an example of what we'll be doing today. So imagine yourself in a big city with lots of tall skyscrapers, and you look up to see the top of the skyscraper, and it's really tiny compared to the bottom of the building you're standing next to. That's because of the perspective and the way that you're looking at the building. So it appears like it's smaller farther up you go on the building because it's actually farther away from you. So I'm going to show you how to draw a 1-point perspective looking up today. So you get to be creative and create all the buildings, the shapes that you want, and the colors you want to use. But I will show you how to create those buildings with that perspective. So let's get started. The supplies you'll need for this project are a piece of drawing paper, just plain white paper is fine. You will need a pencil and an eraser, a ruler for this one, a black Sharpie, a bunch of markers. I've got my big pack of markers out, so I have lots of colors to choose from. But a lot of markers, that'd be great. And if you want to use crayons, you could use crayons, even colored pencils, but I like markers for this one. And then you need a container that is round, about 4 inches across is good, because we're going to use that to create our circle today. So let's get started. Okay, you want to have your paper in your landscape direction to get started. We'll be turning the paper around today as we draw, but we're going to get started in this direction here. So to start, I'm just going to take my container and put it in the center of my paper, and I'm just going to trace around that container to make my circle. Now I'm drawing pretty hard so that you can see my lines, but we are going to be, these are just guidelines and we're going to erase them later. So you may want to just draw a little lighter with your pencil so it's easier to erase later. But that's one of our first guidelines, this fun circle here. And then I want you in the center of the circle just to create a dot. That's going to be, we're going to use that dot for a lot of lines today. So let me set this container aside. All right, so when we get ready to draw our buildings, as you can see, it's like my dot is right here in the middle. And to create that perspective where they're smaller at the top and wider towards the bottom of the building or closer to us, we're going to have to create some lines, and those lines we'll use as the guidelines to the sides of our buildings. So we're going to take our ruler and we're going to, let's see, we're going to make, I think for this one, I made 5 lines across my paper for the example. Let's try it today with 4 lines and see. Our buildings will be a little bigger, but I think that'll work also. So we're going to try it with 4 lines today. You could create 5 lines if you want, but this will just make it a little bit easier for the video, I believe. So we're going to start by, I kind of want to make an X line through my dot. So it doesn't have to be right up to the corner of the paper. It can be off for a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw my first line, go right through that dot and go right on the other side. And my ruler isn't long enough, so I'm going to slide it down, line it up to the line I already created, and continue that line off the edge of my paper there. So there's my first line across my paper. I'm going to do a second line this direction. So I'm going to start, go through, and then finish off on my paper here. There we go. If you have a longer ruler, that will work. You know what? I do have a longer ruler. One right here. This will work. See, that'll work a little better. All right. So then we're going to do 2 more, I think. So we're going to do one probably this way. They don't have to be exactly the same distance apart because buildings are different sizes. So you can create line. They don't have to be perfectly spaced. And let's see, one more line. I think we'll do it this way. And always make sure to go through that dot in the center. All of your lines need to go through that dot in the center of your paper. Now remember to write lightly because we're going to erase these. All these lines in the circle are going to be erased. So, and the dots, you want to make sure that you write those a little lighter. So we're going to end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8 buildings today. Now normally you could do one more line down the center here, and then you'll have, you know what, let's just go ahead and do that. Because I like to do that. But you could stop if you wanted to stop. All right, so now we'll have 10 buildings we'll create today. So I'm going to set that aside. All right, now we will need our ruler still, but we're going to start now and start designing our buildings. So you can create any shape of building that you like. Here's some examples. I did a curved building at the top, straight across, pointed, building with lots of windows, just all different shapes. So we're going to go ahead and create some of those same shapes on our building. So I'm just going to pick one to start. And these guidelines that you made are the sides of your buildings. So I'm just going to make the top of my building to start. And you normally want to make the top really close to this circle, whether it's slightly inside the circle or just right up to the circle or slightly underneath. You want it to be right in that area. So this one I'm going to go slightly above, and I'm going to make a curved top to my building. So I'm just going to curve a line between my 2 guidelines there. So that's going to be the top of my building. And so what I'm going to do is erase this part of this circle so that it now is out of the way and I can create my building. There we go. And then I'm going to draw a line straight across. So I'm just going to take my ruler and draw a line straight across. And it's straight across from the angle that you're looking at. So this one's directly in front of me. This is the building I'm working on right here. So my line is going to be straight across because I'm going to angle my paper so that the building is directly in front of me. So that's how I'm going to create my straight lines. Now when I do this building is going to have slightly this way. It's directly in front of me. My straight lines will go across that way then. And the same with each building. As you move around and work on each building, your lines are going to go straight across according to, see, this building would be straight across this way because it's, I put it right in front of me. So we're actually going to turn our paper around as we work on each building. That way we'll get our lines correct. All right, so now I'm going to make 2 pillars on the side of my building. So what I'm going to do is I usually just make a little mark the same distance apart on from each thing, and then I can see where to put my ruler. So I'm going to make sure that I have it on my dot. It always has to line up with that dot, and then I'm going to put it on that line, that little mark I made, and then I'm going to just draw straight down my building. I don't need to draw from my dot because that's not part of my building up here. I just need to make sure that my ruler is lined up with that dot to get the right perspective. And I'm going to do it again on this side. Line it up with that little mark I made and put it on my roof, or put it on that dot. And then just draw inside my building. There we go. Now I have 2 pillars to my building there. Okay, so now I want to create some windows. So I'm actually going to make little marks inside just to help me where I want to put it. And I'm doing it the same distance from the edge there. And then when I line up my dot on my dot and then on those lines I created, and then when the windows that are farther up the building are going to be smaller, so my line's going to be shorter. In the second window, it's going to be a little longer. In the third window, it's going to be even longer. So see how I have a shorter line, a little bit longer, and then a longer line? It's because the farther up the building goes, the farther away from me it is, so the smaller it's going to be. So I'm going to do that same thing on the other side. Oops. Line up with those dots that I made, and then just make my little line. If it's off a little bit, we can just erase. It's no problem. There we go. So see, now my perspective is correct. It's in the right direction. So then I'm going to take, and see how that line I did across there? I'm going to make that same line straight across on my windows here. And it's okay if it's not lined up exactly correct, because we can erase those extra lines there. So this takes a little bit extra work, but your finished artwork will look really cool. So I'm just going to erase those little extra lines there. And now I want to do a line down the middle of my windows, just to make it look like two windows. So I'm just going to make a little mark there in the middle, and then line it up with my dot in the center, and then draw in the center of each window. And there we go. Now I have two windows. All right, so my first building's done. So now I'm going to go to my second building, and I'm going to make it a little bit shorter this time. And I'm just going to do a straight line across, just like this. And it's just going to be straight line. And then I'm going to make a window, one big window. So I'm just going to make the bottom of my window here with a straight line. And then I can take my ruler and go along my dot and then to the edge of my line to make the side of my window here. On my dot on the other side, make the side of my window there. And then I'm just going to curve the top, make a rounded window at the top. All right, and now I want to make the center of my window, so I'm just going to make a little mark there. Line it up on the dot. And do it down the center. And then I want to make lines across to make a, so I'm going to use that same direction that line is and just make some lines across there. There we go. And then I want to make some little lines to represent maybe some blocks or bricks along the top. So I'm just going to go ahead and take my ruler. And if you have a clear ruler, this will be easier to see because you can see through your ruler. So I'm just going to kind of guess here. So it's okay if they're off a little bit. Just make a line, move your ruler, make sure it's still lined up with your dot. Make another line, make sure it's still lined up with your dot. And then go all the way across because you want to make sure it's lined up with that dot. There we go. There, now I got some lines across the across to look like bricks. And the reason they're off a little bit is because I couldn't see through my ruler to see how far apart they were. So that's okay though, because this is just a fun picture. So if everything's off just a tiny bit because of that, it's no big deal. My concern is that you're just getting your perspective right, the lines in the right direction, lining up with that dot. That's the most important thing. So now I'm going to go to my next section, and I'm going to create like a clock tower building. So here's the sides of my building, and I'm going to go into my circle a little bit, and I'm just going to make a triangle shape to create the top of my building. And then I'm going to do my line across. And then these are my lines down the side. Those are already there for me. And I'm going to go ahead and erase that circle and those this building here. It just helps me see my building better without having that circle in there. Later we're going to erase all those guidelines, but as you go along you can erase that circle in each building. It'll just make it a little easier. And then I'm going to make a little circle here for the clock. I'm going to pretend it's 3 o'clock. So I'm going to make a little 3 o'clock hand. You can add numbers if you want. I just don't because it's easier not to, but you can do that. So I'm going to make a couple windows. So I'm just going to make a little mark here and a little mark here, and that'll help me because I can't see through my ruler. So I'm going to make the side of the window here and the side of the window here. Windows are a little trickier. It's just making sure you have it, your ruler lined up with your dot. And then I'm going to do the line across. Oops. And if you go off the paper, that's okay if some of the windows are off the paper. So now I'm going to line it up with that dot. Make the other side of my window. And the same with this side. You want it to be about the same. There at the bottom of my window. It goes off the paper. Looks cool. I'm going to do my lines across the top of my windows. Erase my little extras there. Alright, and then I'm going to do down the center of each window to make like kind of like this picture. See how they're crossed? To make windows there, that's what we're trying to do. So I'm going to line it up with my dot. Go down the center of my window. And the same thing on this side. And then I'm just going to do my line across the center to create those windows. All right, next building, I'm going to just create another building straight across, but I might go right inside my circle just a little bit. So I'm just going to do a line straight across just inside that circle. The lines underneath to create like the top of the building. Then I'm going to erase that circle because that just helps me see my building better. Okay, and then I'm just going to create 2 lines for guidelines there for me. And then I'm going to line up on my dot in that line. Same thing on this side. And then we're going to draw our lines across. And this one I'm just going to leave plain. I'm not going to add anything to it. So I'm going to create it like an impression in the building, maybe a decorative impression inside the building. Not necessarily windows, but if you want to add more to yours, go right ahead. Now I want to create a building that has, let's see, what building do I want now with, we're going to do a building that we're going to use two of these sections to create a building. So it's looking at, so that we kind of, it's like a building on a corner where we would see 2 sides of the building. So we're going to start, and I'm just going to make a line across on this second square here. I'm going to use both of the squares, and almost like this line doesn't exist. So I'm just going to erase. I need it for the corner of the building here, but I'm just going to erase it there so that I can draw the roof part here. So I'm going to draw straight across here. And then I'm going to draw an angled line from this corner of the circle up to that part there. So that's going to be the front, the one corner. This is going to be the corner of the building right there. So I'm going to actually erase this circle there and just draw a line straight across. And then I'm going to draw a line straight across on this side. Oops, remember to look that direction it's facing me. and draw a line straight across, and then erase that circle. All right, so now, and then I might add some fancy roof shingles on my roof just to give it a little more interesting look. And then I'm going to create some windows on this side. So I'm just going to make, again, my guidelines. Let me look at it directly here. This direction I'm looking at. Line up my dot and my lines here. And on this side, dot and my lines. And then I'm going to do my line straight across here for my windows. There we go. And then I'm going to create just one line down the center. And that's all I'm going to make on those windows. So I'm just going to line it up with my dot. Make it lines down the center. So know that whenever you're making windows or anything on the building, you always have to line your ruler up with that dot to make those windows. That way you're going to get the right perspective. So on this side, I'm going to make like a big door, a big window. So I'm going to go ahead and make my little marks on this side and then line it up with my dot. And then the top, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it kind of rounded and make it a little fancier. And then the bottom here. And then I'm just going to make a line down the middle. Line it up with my dot. There we go. So now it looks like this, the corner of the building, and we're looking at two sides of that building. That one's the trickier one. Now we're going to do a building that has two little peaks. So I'm going to come up here into my circle, and I'm just going to make two triangles next to each other. And then my line straight across. And then I'm going to erase that circle. And I'm going to create 4 windows on this one. So I'm going to do 2 guidelines here, 2 guidelines here. And then I'm going to go ahead and line up on my circle. Oops. There we go. And then these are going to be skinnier windows, so I'm going to do my line here. Let me do it this side so I can see. I'm going to draw my other side of my window. And then I'm going to draw my lines across. And then I have extra lines, so I just erase those extra lines. And then I'm going to make a little peak above each little triangle above each window. There we go. And then I'm going to do a center down each window. So I'm going to go ahead and line those up with my dot. There we go. And then across the center. All right, now I only have 3 more buildings to do. So next to this one, I'm going to make this one a window, all windows on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and make my line straight across here into my circle a little bit. Erase my circle. And then I'm just going to make 2 lines to guidelines. See, they're pretty evenly spaced. It doesn't have to be perfect because this is not a super realistic drawing. This is just to show you how to get your perspective, looking up perspective. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw that line down there, making sure I line it up on my dot. Same thing with this side. And there you go. The farther away it is, the closer the lines are, the smaller it looks. So then I'm going to just draw lines across, and at the top I'm going to do them, make the windows a little smaller, and I'm going to go a little farther down before I do my next one, just because the lower I get, the bigger the windows are. So, and then my last one's going to be really big there. See? That gives you a really cool perspective there. So the next building, let's see what shape I haven't done yet. We have square clock tower. We have a pointed building, another pointed building. So we are going to do 3 triangles at the top here. And then I'm going to do my line into my circle, and then I'm going to do my line across. Usually in a city you have a combination of old buildings and new buildings, and that's kind of what we're doing a little bit here. So I'm just doing my line across to create some design on my building, make it a little more interesting. And I want to create a big window. So I'm just going to create the edges to use as my guidelines, and then I'm going to line it up with my center, do my big window there, side of my window, and then on this side. And then I'm going to do the bottoms, bottom and the top. And then I'm going to make the cool design under my window again, just by doing some curved lines there. And then I'm going to do a line down the center, and then a line across to create like 4 window panes. There we go. That looks kind of cool. And one last little building. And I'm going to go ahead and let's see, what have I done? We are going to do just another straight line across. And this time I'm coming below my circle. This is going to be a smaller building. So I'm just going to do my line across, erase my circle, and then I'm going to do another line across and do some lines inside just maybe a couple this time, bigger bricks. All right. And then I'm going to make a big window again in this building. So I'm going to come down and draw my line. Draw my line on this side. Draw my line across. There we go. And I'm just going to leave it just like that. And now inside this circle, I've erased all my circle lines because I've got all my buildings done. So I'm going to go ahead and erase my dot and those other lines that are inside. This is my sky up here now. Now you can either make it nighttime or daytime, however you want. The example I made was nighttime, so I used darker colors on my buildings. If you want to create a daytime scene, you might make a cloud. I'll use lighter blue or make a sun, and then you would do lighter colors on your buildings instead of darker colors. So we might do that this time. Before we color though, we need to outline all our buildings in black Sharpie. So I'm going to go ahead and outline my buildings. Get that done quick. So if you drew, remember we drew like 5 lines across our paper. If you drew 4 lines or even 3 lines, you will have fewer buildings, and they'll be a little bit different size, but that's okay. Because this is quite a few buildings that I put on here. I wanted to show you a variety. So depending on how many lines you put across your paper will give you the number of buildings. So you could always do fewer. I don't know if we could fit much more than what we have on here, but you could always experiment and try and see. This black Sharpie just gives our picture a nice outline and a nice outline to color in too. And then when I'm done tracing, I'll go through with a big eraser and erase any pencil lines that might be showing. All right, now I'm going to go through with my big eraser and erase all my pencil lines that I have in here. And then we'll get ready to color this picture. All right, so I think I'm going to make mine a daytime one this time. So I'm going to go ahead and get some markers. I'm going to get a lighter blue to do the sky. And I don't have a white marker, so I'm just going to go ahead and draw some clouds, and I'm going to color around those clouds. So I'm going to go ahead and just color blue, nice, beautiful blue sky. And with markers, I color lightly. I don't push down very hard because you'll get better color and you won't ruin the tips of your markers. And I try to keep my little lines close together so I fill in. We don't want a lot of white paper showing. Oh, maybe I'll throw one little cloud there in the corner. So then I'm just coloring around the clouds, and that looks kind of cool. Maybe make this cloud so I see some sky in there. There we go. That looks cool. So now I have a daytime sky. I just chose not to make the sun. Maybe the sun is in a different location in the sky and I don't see it right now. So I just see some clouds in my sky. And here I did little stars. I made tiny little white and colored around those spaces to make the stars with the dark blue, so it looks like a night sky. I don't want to use black at all because I outlined everything in black. I just want to use colorful markers. So I used a dark blue for the night sky. So now I want to use a little bit lighter colors when I color my buildings in. First I'm going to start with some windows. The lights are on in some of the windows, so I'm going to go ahead and just color light yellow just to show the lights are on inside. Because even in the daytime in offices and stuff, they'll still have the lights on. So we'll still see some lights. And I'll pick a couple buildings here that I want the color. This one here. And I'll probably make more yellow in this picture because let's see, maybe this one here. I'll do this one. There's lots of people at work in the buildings. It's daytime. Okay, now for the buildings where the lights may not be on, I might use a shade, like kind of a grayish blue color, and color in those windows. Your buildings can be any color you want. You can make pink buildings or yellow buildings or green buildings. You can have fun with that and create whatever colors that you would like for your buildings. You don't have to be realistic. This is a longer project. You have to be pretty patient. You may not get the perspective exactly, but that is okay. You practice. You can rewind the video and watch again until you get it, because it's kind of a cool thing to be able to create that perspective. So I'm gonna add some this coloring over here. I like this color. Maybe here. All right, so now we're going to get coloring on the buildings. I think I'll do the roof on some buildings, a lighter, some brown. This tiled roof looks cool. With that brown, let's see. We'll do this building. Add some brown to this building. Dark brown on top and some space. All right. So now I'm going to grab some lighter brown to do the building. Alright, so this is the fun part, picking out all the colors that you want to use. Let's do an orange building, that would be pretty. So I'm going to I'll do this one orange, just like in my example. right. Now I want to get a lighter blue color. This is a pretty color. I'm going to color my glass building. This lighter aqua blue is really pretty. Yeah. You can see the difference. At nighttime I made it dark. It was reflecting. This daytime I'm making it light. It's like reflecting the light off of it instead of being darker. This is my building with the glass windows. Alright, let's see. Now we need a red. I have a red in here. A pretty red color. Let's do this brown building red. Oh yeah. For nighttime I made it a real dark red. But for daytime I'm going to make it a lighter red. Okay, let's see. Got some purple. Some light purple color here. I think we're going to do this building, this lighter purple. Hopefully you have a variety of markers or crayons that you can use. You could use both too. You could use crayons and markers if you wanted. To add your colors to your buildings. And we have green. We need some green. How many green in our tower? Green. Now when I'm coloring this, I like to not put all the cool colors on one side of my paper. So I mix it up. So I put warm and cool colors next to each other just to give a little more interesting. Okay, let's see, we've got this building over here. What color haven't we used yet? We have used, let's use a darker or really light orange. Let's do a really light orange or even a peach color. I think I'll save my peach for the other building over there. Here's a purple, but I want to do one more purple. Let's do this one purple. Yeah. And I'm gonna put purple in there. I forgot to color the clock. Let's make the clock purple too. There we go. All right, one more building and then we'll be all finished with our pictures. So let's color real light color in here, just like a peachy color. And we'll color our other edges a little bit darker. Do a dark. Yeah, this will be good. Just the edges. That'll look good. So kind of the same shade of color, just a darker shade of that same color. All right. There we have our beautiful looking up 1-point perspective. I hope you had a great time with this project, and this one takes a little bit of patience, but the results are fantastic. So enjoy the project. Please snap a picture of it. You can always email me a picture. I'd love to see your finished project. So thank you for joining me today. Bye-bye.